And the, well, welcome everybody. Appreciate that you took the time to attend our webinar. I have some exciting panelists that have a lot of experience, some great information to share. I do want to speak to you a little bit about some housekeeping. I'm wondering if you can put the slides up, Nathan, if you wouldn't mind. Okay. So the name of our webinar, as you can see, is Insights from Kinesiology and Sports Management Experts in Professional Sports. And we are going to be talking to a panelist. So I'm going to have our folks introduce themselves to you individually. I'll call on them. I do want to let you know we are going to have an interactive question and answer. I'd like you to save your questions for the end. Feel free to add them to the question and answer part, and then we will answer them at the end, or the panelists will answer whatever you'd like. So we're going to have once we introduce, we're going to have a roundtable discussion. I've got some questions I'm going to be asking our panelists. I will then talk about program highlights in terms of our doctoral, bachelor's degree, and master's degree, the next steps in the process, and then finally our interactive Q&A. So introduction. So I'm just gonna start with those I see at the top of my screen and go from left to right. So Alex, you are up.
Nice to meet everyone. My name is Alex Eernissee. I'm the Director of Premium Sales over at Minnesota United FC. We just clinched our first playoff home game in about 5 years, so we're excited about that and kind of working through everything right now. But what I oversee is kind of the hospitality spaces, anything that includes food and beverage in a ticket, any of our corporate sales.
Very good. And your degree is in?
I'm a 2016 grad in sports management.
Very good. Very good. Awesome. Thanks, Alex. And then Rachel, take it away.
Sorry, I already messed it up. Okay. Hi, I'm Rachel Snyder. I am currently a coordinator in the community engagement department with the Minnesota Twins. My focus is mostly on jewel events, we call them. So any of your bigger pre-games or events that are held at Target Field, such as opening day, Twins Hall of Fame, Twins Fest is a big part of what I do also. My undergrad is in exercise science, and then I got my master's through Concordia in sport management.
Very good. Well, welcome, Rachel. Thank you.
Thank you.
And then I'd like to introduce you to Ivan.
Hey, everybody.
Cardona.
My name is Ivan Cardona. I'm the manager of our ballpark tours at Target Field and event support. So what that means is we do game day tours, we do non-game day tours, we do pre-game VIP tours, private tours, educational tours. We bring about 30,000 people into the ballpark annually. So I'm kind of the guardian of that. I also do a lot of event support, so helping with ancillary events like concerts, football games, post-game concerts, do a little bit of a help with DE&I, support and strategy, and I also co-lead a program called Professional Sports Experience, which we have partnered with Concordia St. Paul. I have a bachelor's from Concordia and a master's in sports management from Concordia as well.
Very good. Thank you. Appreciate it. And Jeffrey Ruiz.
Hi, my name is Jeffrey Ruiz, and I'm the Senior Director of Rehabilitation and an Assistant Strength Coach with the Miami Heat. And I got my undergrad degrees in exercise and sports science and psychology. And then I got my doctorate in physical therapy. And now I'm in the PhD program of kinesiology here at Concordia, and with more of a focus in strength and conditioning. So yeah, I've enjoyed my time here very much so.
Very good. Thank you, Jeffrey. So look, we've got a great group here of experienced, educated, prior alumni, and I'm excited to hear more. All right. So let's get into the discussion. So let's start with Ivan. Tell us, how did you start your career in professional sports?
How did I start? Man. So before I got into sports, I was a special ed teacher. And during the summer times, I had worked at golf courses. And the one in particular was Hazeltine National Golf Course out in Chaska, Minnesota. And at that time, I had befriended an individual named Kevin Warren, who at the time was the CFO of the Minnesota Vikings. And I connected with the tournament director at the Ryder Cup, who was playing at Hazeltine in 2016. And so that was my first start. I got into the Ryder Cup. It was a year-long position. I was doing ticket sales, corporate hospitality, operations. And then from there, it just became a network journey of connecting the dots and meeting the right people along the way. And from there, I went and did some behind the scenes stuff at the Super Bowl. And it was here in town, but had a full-time role, about a 28-month contract with the men's NCAA Final Four in 2019, where I was the project manager for all of our initiative programs. And then after that, the Twins scooped me up about 6 months later, and I've been with the Twins ever since. And so if I look back at my career, it literally is all from networking and meeting the right person at the right time, volunteering. And that's how I got in. It wasn't easy, but
Mm-hmm. I appreciate what you shared. I think it's important for potential students and current students, whether you're a bachelor's student, a master's degree student, or a doctoral student, to know that, it isn't easy and networking is important. And did you find a lot of networking with our faculty and advisors? Was that helpful?
yeah. Lana Huberty, maybe many of you know her. Lana was really instrumental when I was there, right?
Mm-hmm.
And but faculty wise, Lana was really the only one. But all the other ones, I mean, had great. I mean, if I wanted to get a connection, I'm sure I could have, right? Just
Okay.
my connections were here in Minnesota, and
Yeah. Very good. Thank you. Thank you for sharing.
welcome, of course.
Rachel, would you mind answering the question as well? Appreciate it.
Yes, for sure. So I was a little bit older when I got into professional sports. I had a lot of different jobs before I got my internship. Just doing various things. I was a personal trainer right out of college. Worked in advertising sales, coached some volleyball, built some strength and conditioning programs for them. My aspirations eventually had turned me to a career where a master's degree would have been necessary.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why I signed up for the program. Side note is I don't want to do that anymore after doing a lot of informational interviews and kind of understanding, I'd miss a lot of family time, which is something that, in my life, I've decided that it's not something that I want to sacrifice for my career anymore. So anyway, I was able to start my journey in professional sports as an intern in 2016. Went through the application process and somehow was selected. I do think that because I was slightly on the older side of being an intern,
Mm-hmm.
that kind of helped. But then, the additional life experience, and then I think one of the main things that made me stand out in that process, where I was able to get a face-to-face interview, was the fact that I had my master's degree in sport management.
Okay.
So then I began working in professional sports with the Minnesota Twins in 2016. And over that time, managed to foster a lot of really great relationships and show my value and what I can bring to a team. It's helped me move from intern to part-time to various full-time roles. So
Wonderful. I think what I find interesting, what I've heard so far, is that there are a variety of positions and roles that you all have been a part of, and as a result of your education, whether it's a bachelor's degree, master's degree, or doctoral degree. So fantastic. Let's go to the next question, and I'll go to a couple of other different panelists. If and how are the career strategies and paths different in professional sports? Let's start with Jeffrey. Or I should say, Dr. Ruiz, would you prefer?
No,
Okay.
definitely. So I would probably say, so I've worked in athletics for over a decade now, and the career strategies and paths that are different in professional sports uh, in comparison to the collegiate level are pretty distinct in the sense that when you're with a professional organization, that is the sole focus of that entire organization is to try to win and to try to optimize and maximize everything out of every employee, including obviously the athletes as well. And with that, when we're dealing with something like a high school or college, there's obviously the aspect of education and a lot of other variables to consider is as opposed to with professional sports, we all have that one objective, and obviously everybody wants to win in collegiate athletics, and it's a
Hmm.
very intense atmosphere as well. However, there's just so many different things to try to consider, and they are student athletes, as most of them are not going to become professionals in that rank. So the intensity is probably similar, like the same in that regard. However, the strategy and the tactics to get to that goal are a little bit different because you have every single resource allocated towards uh, winning and trying to get everybody to reach success.
Very good. And you went from being a physical therapist previous. Are you still practicing physical therapy?
Oh yeah, yes.
Oh, you are.
I'm
Okay.
still practicing. I'm a practicing physical therapist. I had started my career in strength and conditioning and kind of transitioned into that as a hybrid. And then now I'm officially a hybrid, but I'm the senior director of rehab. So I definitely still work with like injured patients and more high risk patients in strength
Okay.
and conditioning as well.
Very good. Thanks, Jeff, for sharing.
So,
Mark, can you talk about the career different in professional sports? If and how are the career strategies and paths different in professional sports?
Well, I can only speak to professional football, um, but the only way into the NFL is through networking. And unfortunately, it matters little what your degree is. It's about who you know. Now, that sounds frustrating, I know, to a lot of people, but the thing you have to realize, it's who you know, but understand too, it's what they know about you. I'm coming from the strength and conditioning space. So the reality in strength and conditioning is you are hired, fired, and evaluated by somebody who thinks they know your job, but actually they know very little. So you have to understand that going into it.
Good advice. Thank you. We appreciate that. Alex, any follow-up with this since you are in professional sports as well?
Sure. So I'm on the ticket sales side. The way in on my industry is you're going to start in an entry level position. So most teams will have an inside sales program or a new business program. It'll be a lot around focused on learning and development, training, getting better. But the unique thing about our role is that all the numbers are tracked. You're compared against your peers. It's really easy to tell who's being successful, who's picking up the projects. And then from there, you're able to kind of decide what you want to do. Once you're in, you can choose If you want to be someone that's in a managerial role, you can go after that. If you decide you want to stay in sales, you can do that. There's always the opportunity to go and chase different teams that will have titles that you might want to chase. So like it's easy to move up if you go to smaller teams, but it's also a different beast as far as what you're going to be managing and what your tasks and responsibilities are going to be. But there's also the opportunity to stay within and kind of build your skill set and grow with an organization. My personal path is led that way, where I've kind of developed with the organization. I've seen where we needed help, and I kind of developed my skill set around that. But in ticket sales, I would say the path is get in, figure out what you want to do and what responsibilities you care about and what you like and enjoy, and then find a way to be part of it.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Very useful. All right, let's go to the next slide. What is your advice on breaking into professional sports? And I'll open this up for anyone who'd like to jump in.
Well, I'll add to that. I used to get letters all the time when I was in my position as a professional coach in football from graduating exercise science students every year saying, "What a great job. How do you get in? How do you do it?" And I'd love to have your job. Well, the only thing they knew about my job was what they saw on Sunday afternoons with me standing on the sideline. And that aspect of the job was fun and exciting. Although being a backup coach, it was also very stressful and challenging.
Hmm.
But what they didn't see was me getting up at 4:30 a.m. Every morning, getting in the weight room by 5, preparing with my staff the workouts that started at 6, then taking guys with bad breath and body odor through workouts all day,
Mm.
rolling up our sleeves, coaching, teaching, motivating players to do something that they probably didn't want to do, then climbing back in my car at 5 p.m., driving home, psyching myself up because when I get home, I'm dad, I'm mom's kids break.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess my best advice is, don't go into the profession or with rose-colored glasses. It's a job. And like any job, if it's done right, it takes all that you've got. And it's not all spotlights and glamour. There's a lot of hard work involved with it as well.
Very good. Well, thank you for your insights. I appreciate that. I realized that I had never introduced myself, so I'm going to do that really quickly. I am not in sports. I'm Robin Sherbet. I'm an admissions advisor with Concordia University St. Paul Global, and I really just help students into the program and get them moving. So I've been here 2.5 years and absolutely love it. I previously was and still is a licensed clinical counselor. So I hold that license and practiced in a number of different areas for almost 29, 30 years, and then made my way into higher education as I got really burnt out being on call 24/7 and dealing with crisis. So that's who I am. Anyway, Ivan, tell me, what is your advice on breaking into professional sports?
Oh my gosh, there's so much. Um, so
So think about, yeah.
I'm gonna give you a perfect example that I heard in the office today.
Okay.
So we are hiring 53 interns. And so various managers have to go through a process and we listen to an application, we listen to an audio interview. Okay. And during that audio interview, there might be 6 different questions. And I'm listening to a colleague kind of vent to himself
Mm,
about listening to these applicants. And what he's saying is they're not answering the question. They're not dressed professionally, right? And you have to do the little things, the small things, keep it simple. You can have the great presentation, but if you get there late or there's misspelling, it ruins everything, right? So you got to control the controllables and really do the simple stuff really, really well, right? That literally it takes no talent. These are just basic things, right? But I'm under their opinion that your LinkedIn should be buttoned up. You should be networking on there as much as possible. You should be inviting people to lunch, out to coffee, not to just to gain wisdom and knowledge, right? You should be writing thank you notes when you meet people, right? I'm the person that I would go to. I would be ecstatic if someone's like, they came to the ballpark and like, hey, I was part of the global presentation with Concordia St. Paul, and I just wanted to say hello and like meet you in person. Like, do something extraordinary that stands you out, because in our internship right now, we'll have over 6,000 people apply for 53 jobs.
Wow.
And so how are you going to break through?
Mm-hmm.
Do the bait, answer the question, right? Make sure your resume and your cover letter are tight, right? Come to our career fair, shake hands. And if that is really hard for you to go to those things, bring someone who's maybe an extrovert who can help you along the way, right? And meet people. So it's a little bit of a science and an art to it. And the more you do it, the more you get out of your comfort zone. It is, and you got to have some luck. There's some timing in there, and just meeting the right person that says, wow, Ivan, I like you. Like there's just something there, right? And timing is everything. It took me 3 times before I got hired by the Twins. I was rejected 3 times within 45 days of the Twins to get in. It's just, you got to have this ability to not give up and to have the grit and to keep going if that's really what you want to do in sports. So I know that's a long-winded answer.
No, I think that's great, Ivan. You touched upon a lot of points. Persistence is so critical, it sounds like, in this arena, right? You have to be persistent. You have to get in front of people. I like what you had to say, shaking hands, making sure everything is buttoned up on LinkedIn, being on time, networking, showing up. I think those are all important pieces of advice for students who are considering, getting into the professional sports arena. Does anyone else have anything to add about this? Any other advice from either Rachel or Alex or Jeff?
Yeah. Yeah, so I would definitely agree with both Mark and Ivan on what their overall advice was, because
Mm-hmm.
the common theme that I'm seeing and that I can attest for is that it's going to be a lot of sacrifice, and there might be an allure toward the professional sports arena, but you have to recognize too that it's not going to be an easy ride to get there. And networking is
Okay.
going to be huge, and also not saying no a lot, like in the sense that you have to be able to go ahead and recognize that, yeah, you are going to have to wake up at 4:30 o'clock in the morning. You are going to have to go
Mm-hmm.
ahead and do jobs that you might not feel that you should be doing or something like that. But that's how people get weeded out into professional sports. When somebody's not able to go ahead and do very menial tasks that support the organization and the team, then that lets other people know that maybe they're not going to be as much of a team player, and they shouldn't be around. So those are little things, like such as Ivan was saying, the small things that really stack up and allow you to put yourself on a better kind of level or pedestal than what
Mm-hmm.
it would be if you're just randomly applying.
I
So,
appreciate that, Jeffrey. That's some really good advice in terms of breaking into professional sports. Um, I want to just speak to the participants for a moment. Feel free to ask questions. You've got some highly skilled, educated, experienced folks on this panel, and tap into their information, tap into what they know. Ask away, and I'll be, addressing those questions at the end. So don't be afraid to ask. We're here to answer. Rachel or Alex, before we go to the next question, anything you'd like to add?
I can agree. I mean, it's professional sports is a very competitive job. Like people are trying to get into it. So, similar to what Jeff said, if you're not going to do it, they're going to find somebody that's going to do it. And it's not going to be that hard for them to find someone else. So, raising your hand for anything that you can, whether it's, even if it's just starting as a volunteer, just to kind of show your abilities and your work style. And I think that can be helpful too.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Great advice. Alex, a final word, or should we go to the next question?
I'll be real quick. So now that I'm in a little bit more of a hiring role, some of the things that have stood out to me is just overall cover letters, people that reach out to the hiring manager when you apply. Ivan mentioned going and networking and doing all of that. That goes a long way, being able to not just be a name on a piece of paper, but being someone that they've recognized or met or have some sort of past communication with. It goes a long way.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you for that input. All right, let's get to the next question. And I did see one of the attendees ask a question, so I'm quite happy about that. Thank you. And we will get to those. So the question is, how has research impacted real-world applications in professional athletic performance, injury prevention, and recovery? So how has research impacted this? Would anyone like to jump in if you've got some experience around that?
Well, I wish I could say that the research was the guiding light to real life application. However, in the strength and conditioning space, I'd be lying. Unfortunately, most training practices today were the same training practices that occurred 20, 30 years ago. And there's two studies that really illustrate this point. One by Kamara coming out of the University of Minnesota. And he polled all the high school strength coaches in Minnesota. And on one of his questions, he asked, where is your go-to source when you're making decisions about program prescription?
Mm.
And 65% of the high school coaches cited not research, but other coaches. So 2 years later, Durrell at Southwest Missouri followed that study up with the same poll to Division I strength coaches. And when Division I strength coaches were asked, where's your go-to source for making decisions on your exercise prescription, 93% of college coaches cited other college coaches or pro coaches, and usually the ones that were winning the Super Bowl. So, and it's a shame because injuries at all levels continue to go up. And I'm asked about this all the time, that with science being where it is right now, why do we have injuries going up and up and up? And the thing that's hard for people to make the causal effect or the association is that because of the antiquated training systems that are being done in most weight rooms across the country, they are actually predisposing them to injury when they get into competition. Because of the explosive ballistic type of training that's done, they decrease the joint structural integrity, and they end up getting hurt when they're in competition. So they say, oh no, I got hurt on the field. No. The actual assault on his joints and tendons were the repetitive movements and poor training that was done in the weight room. So I'm hoping that there's going to be more evidence-based practitioners as we move into the future. Right now, that's not the case.
Thank you. Thank you, Mark, for that insight. Ivan, did you have something you wanted to add regarding research?
Yeah, I want to kind of parallel what Mark said. So one of my side passions is refereeing, and I'm lucky that I get to work Viking practices. and I've done that for the last 10 years. And there's a lot of there's been a lot of policy changes with the collective bargaining agreement. And so at certain times of the practice, they have to remove their shoulder pads, right? And you hear a lot of talks of, well, should we go to 4 preseason games? Do we go to 3? Do we go to 2? Where they're not playing really at a fast speed, and then they go into a game, right? And their body's not used to it. And all of a sudden now you have all this ACL, tears and MCL tells. And so what I've seen personally is that
Mm-hmm.
players aren't practicing at game speed, right? And so I'm just curious, Mark, when you're not practicing at game speed, and game speed, these men are fast. Same thing with you, Jeffrey. Like, they're so fast, and then so you go from practice where you're kind of going through the motions as you go through, and then you get a game speed. That, to me, that just seems your muscle memory, your body, something's going to happen there. Do you have anything right there, Mark, or anything to add?
You're speaking to something that unfortunately is glossed over in academia, and it's called the principle of specificity. And the principle of specificity says your body adapts specifically to the stimuli. And so I'll give you an example. When I was conditioning our players before the season started, I would run them into the ground. I mean, we would run and run and run and do a lot of conditioning. But when we hit training camp, I'd be the first one to tell you that we were not in football shape. Okay, we were in running shape. The reason we ran was to lay the physiological foundation, increase mitochondrial density, increase anaerobic enzymes. But in order to get in football shape, they had to put on the pads and get their football reps. Now, how specific is specific? When we hit training camp, if they had run with me, they would play themselves maybe in 3-4 days into practice shape. That's how specific the adaptations are. But when we hit our first preseason game, we were not in game shape. And the only way to get in game shape is to get game reps. That's why the NFL had 4 preseason games to get our starters in game rep shape. That's how specific your body adapts. So, Ivan, you're exactly right. If you're going to get a player in game shape, he's got to get his game reps, and he's got to go at game speed and tempo.
Very good. Interesting. Anyone else want to add to that? Or should we go on to the next question?
Sure, I would love to if we ever.
Yes, of course, Jeff.
So I've worked in the NFL as well as the NBA, and I'll say that the common theme is that you need to be in game shape, and in order to get to that, you have to expose them to game speeds for sure. I think for the real world applications with this, the primary concern that I think I have to face in my job and working with different healthcare professionals and strength coaches is how much do you know your specific athlete, and are you looking at it from a biased lens? So then why I think a lot of the time people will kind of misinterpret certain data or certain studies is because they might be looking at something that isn't necessarily translatable towards their actual population that they're facing.
Mm-hmm.
What they need to try to do a lot of the time, in my opinion, and what I try to strive to do with everybody that's training with us or working with us, whatever it might be, is that we're trying to go ahead and make sure that it is going to be specific to that person's needs, as well as also certain classifications on where you would actually assess them in an honest manner and how it's going to apply strategically towards them at that phase of when they're like either recovering or you're just working on performance enhancement. So it's a hard continuum that is not an easy answer that has a lot of different factors. And I agree with both the panelists that speak on this or that spoke on this for sure.
Very Thank you, Jeff. I appreciate your feedback and your input. All right, let's go on to the next question. Oh, this is a good one. How have you handled ethical dilemmas in your professional sports careers? And anyone is okay to jump in because I'm sure you all have had to manage ethical dilemmas.
So, okay. And I'm just speaking from my opinion. When you get into professional sports, all of a sudden people start tapping you on the shoulder. Hey, can I get some game tickets? You know, hey, can you get me into this?
Oh,
Can you get
mm-hmm.
me into that? Right. And, you know, when you get hired, you sign an HR document that, you know, yeah, your team might provide you game tickets, right? So we, as Twins employees, we get a certain allotment on game tickets, right? Now, could I take those and sell them on somewhere else and try to make money? Yeah, but that would be completely unethical to do that, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's no different if when I referee, if I know a kid is hurt, right? And so I have to sign a gambling document that I can't bet on any sports. I can't go into
Mm,
casino, right?
mm,
And stuff like that because now sports betting is legal in several states, right? And so um I in Rachel's role, my role, there are times where we might befriend a player, right?
mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, he's a player and I'm a full-time employee. And I don't ever
Mm-hmm.
break that relationship where now I'm trying to exchange numbers saying, hey, do you guys want to go out or anything like that? That's not my
Mm-hmm.
role. Right. And so when you go into a professional sports setting, you just know your role, stay in your lane. You're gonna see famous people, you're gonna see, people. And when I see people, I don't ask for photos or anything like that. I do my job and I go,
Mm-hmm.
right? And
Mm-hmm.
so I think that's something that maybe young people are not ready to hear yet. You think you get in, it's fun, it's cool, it's glamorous. But at the end of the day, you have a job to do and you signed a contract on these certain things and you have to stick to it. So that's how I read that question.
I appreciate that, Ivan. Thank you. Rachel, do you have any insight into
Yeah,
this?
yeah. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I can add on to Ivan's. In my role, I work with a lot of alumni relations. And so I have, you know, all of our Twins alumni that are alive. I have all their contact information. So, it would be easy for me to send an email to one of them or send them a text or something. And, but again, I would never do that because obviously that's not what it's meant for. Right. So there's a lot of when I was in executive administration, I would hear a lot of stuff up, outside of the CEO's office. I'd hear a lot of upcoming news information, and you know, you can't pass that along to other
Mm-hmm.
people, right? Until it's released to the public. So you could be faced with a lot of put in a lot of situations where that sort of thing can happen.
So we're talking about boundaries, right? In every aspect of your role. Thank you, Rachel. Mark, do you have some insight?
Well, I'd like to say that I was the pillar of integrity in my career, but being transparent, unfortunately, that wasn't the case. Two ethical dilemmas stuck out for me in my career. In both instances, I was asked by head football coaches to implement exercises into my program that is popular in mainstream training, but it's not backed up by the science and is
Mm,
orthopedically dangerous. The first time it occurred when I was a strength and conditioning coach at the Citadel in Charleston, South Carolina. Now, at the time, I was single. So when I was asked to implement something that I knew was detrimental to the health of our players, players who I recruited, players whose parents I told I would treat as my own sons, I refused. And out of ethical considerations, resigned my position. Now, fast forward 23 years later, I'm married with 3 kids. I bring home the paycheck, I pay the bills, I put food on the table. Again, after a frustrating season, our head coach comes to me and says, you have to implement these exercises. They are not backed by science. They're detrimental to the player's orthopedic health. After initially rejecting the idea and giving him my explanation why, I acquiesced. And I said, Coach, this is your team. You're the boss. I march to orders. And we did it. And did our injury rate go up? Absolutely.
Wow.
And then I was fired by that same coach who said that we had too many injuries. So what was the difference between the two situations? One is I was single and I could afford making that decision. Things change when you're married and you're the breadwinner of your family.
I imagine. Alex, any advice or any situation you can think of, an ethical dilemma you might have been a part of in this area?
Most of my ethical dilemmas involve money, because I work in sales. So sometimes things are in the best interest of the club and not necessarily in the best interest of the client. Sometimes it's about how reps get paid based on how things come in. Sometimes it's about how you manage certain employees. I think anytime you have ethical dilemmas, is the most important thing is to have a really good foundation that you can lean back on, as well as good processes that are kind of established before you get into the situation. Then for my particular role, and this may be different across other positions that are on the panel, it's about remembering, what my job is. My job is to make money for the club. I'm not out here saving lives. I'm not out here doing anything that is life or death. I go home at the end of the day and I see my family. So doing what's right, even if it might be in detriment to the club or not be what is something that you're being pressured to do, it makes sense. So that way you can go home and you can live with the outcome.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Great insight. All right, I think our final question. This is great. This is in my area. Why has there become a rising importance of mental health awareness in sports? Anyone want to jump in?
I can start. I love this question.
Great.
So when I joined community engagement, I was actually put in charge of our mental health day. So I think the biggest reason, the rising importance is because people are just talking about it. And I think it's so great, right? And that's all the work that we do on the mental health side, is to break that stigma. And I love being able to put focus on that, on using our platform to put focus on it. Being a former college athlete, there's a lot of times I think back to my playing career and I'm just like, man, I really could have used some form of mental health assistance, training, whatever. Like, I did not get that when I was a college athlete. And the Minnesota Twins, we partner with Premier Sports Psychology, and originally started where they would work with our players. And then, our HR team decided to implement it throughout our staff, which has been amazing. So, we get assistance from Premier Sports Psychology. I get to set up a therapy session in the middle of the day, with a therapist, and it's fantastic. And I just love that they're putting the emphasis on that, and we're using our professional platform to speak about the importance of mental health awareness in sports.
Very good. Thank you. Mark, before I get to you, Jeff, did you have anything you'd like to add to this in terms of mental health awareness in sports?
Yeah, so I think mental health awareness is something that is being recognized as one of the most powerful tools with sports, because if somebody is in not even a state of crisis, but not optimally well, it's going to affect them in several different avenues. And it can honestly be the most detrimental thing for somebody, for any athlete. So, uh, I mean, it's not just empathy for that person. I think it's also just empathy for everybody that's around them, their family, their employees, like their coworkers. And I would say just being in the professional ranks. I was in college, and obviously we worked with sports psychologists in the training room and everything like that. But in professional sports, I think it's just to a whole other level. Like the funding for it and the acknowledgement that there's no need for a stigma, that everybody can seek something out, seek help out. Is just way more accepted than I think years past, and
Hmm.
it's a good positive trend. So my experience with the past 5 years in professional sports has been great, with mental health awareness.
Very good. And I'd like to hear both from Mark and from Ivan. I think Mark, you're going to give us, you've been in the field quite some time, and I know having being in the field of mental health, we've seen changes over the years. So I'll be curious to hear what you have to say about that. Ivan, what do you have to contribute to the rising importance of mental health awareness in sports?
I just think there's a increased recognition of it and what I mean by that is, um, athletes are now more open to their struggles on mental health, and that reduce that stigma. And so when you have Simone Biles, right, in the Olympics, literally stops performing because mentally she's doesn't feel she's ready, and then I've heard some really interesting stats because she did that. Women's mental health increased like exponentially, especially within young Black women, right? And so um it's being in professional sports, it just there's high pressure, and because sports is such big money, there's big pressure to perform, right? And then you have the power of social media where, you know, all right, the official at the Lynx game, maybe they made the right call, maybe they didn't. I guarantee you that individuals getting death threats, right? Because they're saying the officiating crew caused the Lynx not to win a championship, right? Like for that official, that mental, that really dwells, right? And so I think you're um and I just think there's more organizations that are better suited. They have better systems, resources to help, like a Premier Sports, right,
Mm-hmm.
that we have. So there's a lot of factors to it, but it really helps when some of the best athletes in the world, like Michael Phelps, is voicing up his opinion on mental health. I think it's really huge for them to be vulnerable and step out in that limelight.
So we need to continue to talk about this. This is an important issue. It impacts everybody in the sports field, and with the help of social media, I mean, I think it's a double bind here. I mean, we've got people that can speak to it and support it, and we have the other side where I'm sure athletes are tremendously anxious, and I can imagine just, all the comments and that we hear from people. But Mark, what are your thoughts? Mental health has come a long way from the time I imagine that you started in the career, and you probably saw a transition.
Yeah, I would just echo with the other panelists what they had added. And I think that the negative stigma that has traditionally been associated with mental illness is experiencing a paradigm shift, not only in our culture, but in sport.
Mhm.
Rather than being viewed as a character flaw, mental illness is becoming understood for what it really is, a clinical condition. And like other clinical conditions, mental illness can be diagnosed and treated.
Right. Agreed. Agreed. And it's getting people to be comfortable enough. So, providing services, talking about it, it's something we need to continue to push for. I appreciate your feedback, everybody. Um, let's go to the final question, and then we're going to start answering some questions and talking about um, our programs here. Does anyone have any experience and or information regarding traumatic brain injuries in professional sports? And can you share some risk management strategies with regards to traumatic brain injuries?
I think in the space of professional sports, youth sports, at every level, this is the elephant in the room right now,
Mm-hmm.
sports-related concussion.
Yeah.
And if you look at current risk management strategies that are being implemented, you're looking at raising awareness, you're looking at legislation, you're looking at changes in protective equipment design. Um, but when you're taking a look at rule changes, but whether you're looking at CDC numbers, Pop Warner football numbers, or NFL numbers, concussions continue to go up annually. So what we're currently doing isn't effective. And as healthcare professionals, we need to ask ourselves the question, what more can we do to mitigate this problem? And the research is there, the expert consensus is there. And what it says is that in order to understand concussion, you first have to understand the mechanism that creates concussion. And what creates concussion is a head acceleration injury. So we have to come up with strategies to deaccelerate the head at impact. Well, you have to understand that the hypermobile head is controlled by the neck musculature. And the preponderance of evidence clearly shows that if the neck muscles are stronger, upon impact, that strength causes a stiffer cylinder, and it results in slower head movement. Slower head
Mm,
movement results in slower brain movement. Slower movement of the brain dampens the mechanism of concussion. So, unfortunately, this concept is not understood by the majority of coaches.
mm-hmm.
So, to see any type of neck strengthening in most weight rooms, it's just not done. And um, it's a shame because as a strength and conditioning coach, my job is always to protect my players from the rigors of sport.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to logically start with the most catastrophic risk, which is spinal cord injury and traumatic brain injury. And in strengthening the neck, you can prevent and mitigate both those uh, types of injuries. So I know that when my players would come in the weight room in the NFL, the first thing we did was we worked on neck strengthening. And so I think that that information needs to get out to the healthcare profession because
Mm-hmm.
right now it's just not getting done.
Thank you, Mark. Anyone have any feedback or any
Yeah,
strategies as we wrap up Jeffrey, that you'd like to share? Thank you.
yeah. So I could not agree with Mark more, and that's not just from like a strength coach's perspective. That's from a healthcare professional. I just had this conversation like 3 days ago. Like so in weight rooms in football, one thing that constantly would do is strengthen the neck. With basketball, I still try to strengthen the neck with people. And another thing, just from risk management strategies, like I think that uh, sometimes people get caught up with maybe like, oh, they want to work on certain like little musculature for the neck, but like with different neck associated problems. But global strengthening of the neck and the upper trunk is
Mm-hmm.
imperative in my eyes. But past that, another thing that I've had discussions about, and I don't think necessarily it's always supported by research or it's not, but just clinically what I would like to do, and from my judgment, what I do with a lot of people is
Mm-hmm.
to work on baselines of reactions and how they would actually be associating like rapid head turns, different things on top of also neck strengthening. So when they do have to, if they are actually coming back from a concussion, it's not something that's foreign to them, but it also might help prepare their nervous and their vestibular system to the different stresses of a hard collision. So it's not just completely foreign, and they've actually, in my eyes, I feel that you can get a little bit of a quicker recovery when something isn't necessarily uh, like brand new, and
Mm-hmm.
that's from like not just connective tissue or anything like that, but also from the vestibular system, and the deep ears and all this stuff that it could be very helpful. But neck strengthening, if there was one thing that I would say taking away for management or risk management strategies, 100%, I would go with neck strengthening.
Thank you. Thanks, Jeff. Mark, we're going to wrap up this portion of the questions. I'm going to then we've got a couple of questions for the panelists. And what I think I'll do because it is getting late, is allow you to get back to your family, friends, whoever, and I will run through the programs that we offer here. But Mark, was there any final words in terms of risk management strategies for TBI?
The biggest pushback I get when I talk to coaches about this is the fear of training the neck. And training the neck is a very easy thing to do. In order to train human muscle, you must put progressive loads over time against the function of the muscle. So if I was strengthening my bicep, I would put progressive loads against elbow flexion. Well, the same holds true for the neck. If I want the neck flexors to get stronger, I have to put progressive loads against neck flexion. Same for the extensors, same for the lateral flexors. So it's not rocket science. And I think people get confused when they go to the internet and they see all these dangerous styles of
Mm-hmm.
training the neck. It's very basic movements that you have to do that. So
Thank
it's
you.
and the last thing is we're always told the narrative that the game is safer than ever, uh, uh, but not if your neck is weak. And even if it is safer than ever, is it safe enough? And
Mm-hmm.
if you were to ask me right now, I would say no, because the practice of neck strengthening is just it's just terrible for me to go see these high school football games and these kids have these big concussion proof helmets on and they have
Mm-hmm.
these little pencil necks and it's really sad.
Kind of scary.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for that. So we've got three questions. Two questions pertain to the panelists. And I'll invite any other questions, but I'm gonna go ahead and read these off and then you can answer it and then um, get back to your family and I'll review the program. So one of the questions from one of the attendees is Ivan mentioned the professional sport experience and Rachel mentioned internships, both with the twins. What are these opportunities and how do they differ?
Ivan, I'll let you answer since, I mean, an internship is a pretty basic internship. You know, you are hired and you work, you know, you do small jobs kind of around the office, and some departments you have a lot of work to do. Some departments don't have as much. But you know, just a way to kind of see what goes on. But Ivan's program that he is working with is a little bit different.
Yeah,
Thank you, Rachel. Mhm.
it's a good question. Rachel nailed it. There's 53 positions. It's a paid. The difference is that the internship is paid. right? It's a more longer term. So an internship, what average internship is about 9 months. Most of them start middle February and go to the end of the season, unless we go into playoffs. But right now, obviously, we need to go into the playoffs. We still have some interns still with us, right? And some will go into December. It just depends on what department. If it's more revenue driven than anything else. But the sports experience program, that is a 8-week program. You come, basically it's having a college class at the ballpark. So class is on every Monday. They meet from 10 to 2 p.m. On those Mondays, every throughout those 8 Mondays, I work with front office staff to come in and be guest speakers. So we will have our president of finance will come in. We have had higher ups from operations to our marketing team. We have coordinators, we have directors, we have managers, and at the end of the program, our president and CEO Dave St. Peter comes and talks to the students for about 30 minutes, 45 minutes. And essentially it's a what's your background? How did you get into your role? What do you do in your role? And then obviously there's more questions, but throughout those 8 weeks, we create real world experiences. So I work with my staff where they might come in and they're going to shadow our guest services team on a game day, or they're going to go into the control room and see Sam run his presentation throughout the game, or maybe they're going to a baseball field and they're going to help community engagement with a softball or baseball event. So there's a variety of it. We have done 4 different cohorts. I would say 98% are all Concordia St. Paul students, but we do open it up to other individuals who are from a different school. We're the only sports team that's doing something like this in the city, in the Twin Cities, and really the goal is to get them a real world experience. And I think we're doing that. So that's really the big difference to that individual who asked the question.
Thank you. And then the final question for our panelists before we dismiss is for Mark. And, briefly, the question is, Mark noted the intensity of the job. What keeps you motivated? What is the source of your passion to give 150% in coaching? If you could take just about.
Sorry, did you cut out there for a second?
Yeah.
The
Mhm,
the passion coaching starts and ends with relationships, building
mhm,
relationships. And it's in those relationships that you form, and forming relationships isn't an easy thing. I mean, you've got to roll up your sleeves, you've got to be on the floor, um, you've got to be sincere and genuine. It can't be these 3-step techniques to, players can see a fake a mile away. And so going into that situation, you have to make authentic relationships. And when you do that, now it's not just you doing your job. Now you're doing your job for your family.
mm,
And you want to see all those individuals you train succeed at the highest level. And that's
mhm.
what would get me out of bed um, every day. And whether I was at the high school level or the professional level, um, it's the relationships that really keep you going. And when you retire, that's what I miss the most.
Very good. All right. Before we move into program highlights, anything else from any of the panelists that you think our attendees could benefit from overall? Any advice or feedback of those that are planning on, moving into a bachelor's degree, a master's degree, or a doctoral degree, a doctorate degree? Well, thank you very much for your participation. We really appreciate. I've learned a lot. I'm sure the folks that have joined us have learned a tremendous amount as well. We appreciate you taking the time. Um, right now, if you'd like to, go ahead and have some time back and jump off, that's fine. I'm going to talk about program highlights with the rest of the few minutes remaining. And that's it. Thank you all so much. I appreciate your feedback and your time, your insight, your experience, and sharing all of that.
Thanks a lot, Robin. I appreciate it.
Sure, absolutely. Pleasure meeting everybody.
You as well.
Thanks,
Thank you.
guys. Thank you, Robin. Thank you, Concordia. Appreciate it.
Thank you,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Thank you.
All right, let's jump into program highlights. All right, so we offer 3 programs. So we have 2 sports management programs. We have a bachelor's degree in sports management, and we have a master's of arts in sports management. The bachelor's degree of arts in sports management has 44 credit hours, total degree, 44 program specific sports management credit hours. You need 120 credits to graduate with a bachelor's degree. You can come in with college credits up to 90 from previous courses you've taken elsewhere, and you'll need official transcripts. Or you can start from scratch and do the whole 120 hours. The Master of Arts in Sports Management, 11 months. Curriculum credits is 33. We could potentially look at some transfer credit with the into the Master of Arts in Sports Management if you have a similar related degree from an accredited institution. We'll take a look at that. And then we offer a doctorate in kinesiology. We offer both an EDD and a PhD. In the EADD and the PhD, they come with 4 emphasis options. We have exercise science, exercise physiology, sports nutrition, strength and conditioning. So you're getting either an EDD or PhD in kinesiology, and there are 4 areas that you can focus in, 4 concentration areas. So those are the programs that we offer. Now, if you want program specifics, you just take a picture of the QR code on the screen here tonight, or you can email me, you can call me, you can text me, and I'm happy to speak to you further about program specifics for both the bachelor's degree and the master's degree. And then there is a QR code for the doctoral degree, I believe, on the next screen. Here we go. So not only is there a QR code, we've got one for each concentration or emphasis: exercise science, sports nutrition, exercise physiology, strength and conditioning. We also have a couple of other webinars that we've done that goes into details with this. You're more than welcome to visit our website. I'll have all that information at the end. You can also call me, text or email me, and we can have a conversation about our programs. All right, but use these QR codes now. In terms of the program format, and this goes across the bachelor's, the master's, and the doctorate, 100% online, so tremendous flexibility. It's ideal for the working professional, the working parent, that you have the opportunity to have a lot of flexibility. It's asynchronous, so there's no set time or set amount of time to be in class. You have a syllabus that has deadlines. As long as you're meeting those deadlines, whenever you decide to get the work done is entirely up to you. That said, I always tell students it's really important to carve out a specific time and stick with it, and that'll help you to be more successful. There are no face-to-face requirements for any of the programs. However, for the all of the programs, just so you know, have online. So we've got tutoring, we have if you need your papers, your research reviewed, if we have mentoring. So whatever we offer on campus, we have online. And there is no face-to-face requirement. We do encourage all of you, whether you're a bachelor, obtaining your bachelor's, your master's, or your doctorate, to come to campus for graduation. It's quite an accomplishment, and we want to see you there. No campus visits required. Some of our doctoral students do come to campus and utilize the labs, but please know that we will help you facilitate wherever you live across the United States, or if you're global, we'll help facilitate in your area. what it is you need for your dissertation, for your research. Small classes, cohorts are about 20. Tremendous amount of support from our faculty. That is, we recognize two things successful in an online program, and that is immersed with experienced faculty, which you will be, and support. It's key in every aspect of our program. We have, as you can see, we talked to some panelists that were graduates of our program, but I did want to emphasize that we've got our faculty have connections to the CDC, NFL, Duke Hospital, Mayo Clinic. You're going to be immersed, whether it's at the bachelor level, the master's level, or the doctoral level, you will be immersed with experienced faculty. And like I mentioned earlier, on-campus resources. All right, moving along. So in terms of transfer credit, we talked about transfer credit. If you're getting your bachelor's degree in sports management, you can transfer up to 90 credit hours from school work that you've done previously, whether it's community college or other universities. We will need an official transcript to confirm, and you can reach out for more details. A master's degree in sports management, if you've got a master's degree in a related field, you can transfer up to 16 credits potentially. And then for the doctorate degree, those with relevant master's or doctoral credits may qualify to transfer in up to 12 to 24 credits. If you're an alumnus or alumni of CSP, you're eligible for the 24. If you are a practicing physical therapist, chiropractor, you can, with a doctorate from a previous program, transfer in up to 21. And then for our master's degree students, we'll consider up to 12 into the doctoral program from a previous related master's degree. And again, feel free to reach out to me for more information. It's very generous transfer credit. All right, so we've got one more question. Let me pull it up here. That one of our panelists asked, does the class offer part-time? And if I have exercise and nutrition master's degree, can I apply for physiology or exercise PhD? If I want to get both PhD in exercise nutrition and exercise philosophy, can I skip some repeated courses? All right, so in terms of all of the programs, okay, let's start with a bachelor's and master's degree. You can take one or two classes at a time. Of course, the more you take, the quicker things you'll be able to get to the finish line. It will complete. So no more than two classes in the bachelor's or the master's. The doctorate program, you can take one class, and all of our classes are 8 weeks in length. So our attendee asked about part-time. In the doctorate program, you take one class every 8 weeks. We don't encourage two classes until you've gotten into the program and you're comfortable. So it actually is like part-time, one class every 8 weeks. You're looking at spending anywhere between 9 and 12 hours per week of coursework, depending on the program and your time management skills. For the doctoral program, you asked if you can apply for a couple of different programs. You have to select whether you want an EDD or a PhD, and then you do need to select a concentration. We do have core classes and we have electives. It's important that you make your decision up front so that you're not having to repeat any classes. And there is potential to skip some repeated courses, but you do have to select and stay within the framework of a PhD or an EDD with a particular emphasis. There are some nuances. We definitely can speak about that. If you shoot me an email or a text, give me a phone call, I'm happy to talk to you about those nuances. All right, any other questions or concerns? So the application requirements, we require, of course, a free online application. Your official transcripts, if you're a bachelor's degree student, if you have any college credits, all official transcripts sent school to school. If it's under 20 college credits, then we'll need your high school diploma officially sent over. For the master's degree, official transcripts school to school. For the doctoral degree, official transcripts sent school to school. For the doctoral degree, the doctorate degree, we need a writing sample from your master's degree, a scholarly piece of work that has APA citations and a reference page. And then for the doctorate program, only a resume or a CV, current resume or CV. So an online application for all three programs, official transcripts, school to school from all three programs, and then for the doctorate, a writing sample and a CV. We do need a GPA for the doctorate and master's degree program of a 3.0 or higher. For the bachelor's degree program, you need a 2.0 or higher from relevant coursework or your high school GPA. If it's lower than that, we can talk about that. There are a few, again, nuances that we can cover. Next steps in admissions. So the first step would be to, start an application for any one of these programs that we talked about. I would definitely reach out to me. My direct phone number 651-369-8411. Or for a faster response, you can email me at sherbet@csp.edu. We have the CR code if you want to use it to apply now. It'll take you directly to the application. I can walk you through the application. I can, fill in the blanks in terms of any questions you have regarding either the bachelor's degree in sports management, the master's degree in sports management, or the doctorate degrees in kinesiology. Don't hesitate to reach out. These are exciting programs. You saw what resulted out of some of our programs with either a bachelor's degree in sports management or a master's degree and even a doctoral degree. So don't hesitate to reach out. And then if there's no other questions, we're going to end the webinar. I want to thank you all for sharing your time with us and appreciate you. If you have any questions, I will be in the office as early as 8:00 a.m. tomorrow. Don't hesitate to reach out to me and appreciate your time. And I am looking forward to speaking with you all. Thank you so much.